On this episode, we discuss our favorite things to do with our kids based on their ages.
You're listening to the Dudes and Dads Podcast, a show dedicated to helping men be better dudes and dads by building community through meaningful conversation and storytelling. And now, here are your hosts, Joel DeMott and Andy Lehman.
Andy did I feel like our intro just growled at me.
Be sure to...
I'm all over the place tonight. I actually
did this, and wow.
All right, so I'm back.
Okay. Well, hey, everybody. Welcome to the Dudes and Dads Podcast. It's me, Joel, across the table from my intrepid co-host and dangerously handsome beard aficionado, Andrew Lehman. Hi, Andy.
Howdy, Joel.
It's another great time to be together.
It's a great time to be alive.
It's a great time to be alive. The feel where we are in this Midwestern part of the United States, the feel of fall is in the air.
It is true. I mean, it's starting to get crisp in the morning.
Have you had a fire recently?
No, I've not had a fire recently.
We got to fix that.
I know.
It's fire weather.
It is fire weather. Fire and pumpkin spice? No, not really. I don't do the pumpkin spice thing.
Wow.
It's not for me.
It isn't for you? Did you that indicates to me that you did try it at one point.
Yeah, I mean it's okay, but I would rather if I'm going to do something spicy like that, I guess I'd rather go for a chai tea than pumpkin spice.
Well, okay, we've lost all of our listeners. So for the two of you that remain,
listen, that's it.
No, the chai tea here. I will say this: I was super suspicious of it for quite some time. Started dabbling in it, and I will say, well, because I still remain. I'm just pretty much straightforward coffee, you know.
Well, yeah, me too. But
speaking of which, I did just pick up a new coffee travel mug that I'm very excited about.
Oh, tell me,
made by it's a Stanley.
Oh, so you're on the Stanley kick. You know, that's one of those things. Like
I'm coming
used to be
around.
Nalgene, and then
whatever.
Now you're to Stanley, and it's popular. You're super popular. Joel.
I just like to stay in the The reason being, there's a few weird things. Number one, because we do AeroPress. We've talked about AeroPress on here. The AeroPress fits right on, like it goes. I can just like hold it right on top and do it right directly into there. It's a good size. It also, I had some problems with the travel coffee mugs not fitting my car mug.
Oh yeah, that I completely understand that.
And I just like this is not acceptable. So I had to find the right size. It's spill proof, which that was the other problem. I had another coffee mug that was a travel one, but if it tipped at all or anything, the seal was not substantial.
Gotcha. So then you ended up having
I just spilled around whatever. So this is the Stanley. I will say it's nice to look at. It's got that nice.
It's beautiful, if you would say.
It's black. It's got the black like powder coat finish to it.
Oh sure, yeah.
It's very sleek, very nice.
But this is not the show about powder coating.
That's true. It's not the show about powder coating. You got me off. Wait, it was the pumpkin spice latte. Anyway, yes, the feeling of fall is in the air, and there's and it does make me think about the various activities that you start doing in the fall. But then we got talking. We're like, hey, we had a great recommendation by one of our favorite listeners, Mr. Jonathan Ortzler. That's who sent
That's who sent this one in. That's correct. Yes.
Jonathan, great idea. He said, hey, could there be a discussion about great things to do with your kids based on their age? And I said to myself,
that's a great idea.
That's a great idea. That's why we love to get the recommendations from other people. So yeah, that's going to be our conversation today, Andy. But before we do that, we'd like to thank our sponsors. And it just so happens that our sponsor this evening is none other than Podcast Answers. Hey, if you want to learn how to start a podcast or grow your podcast, the Podcast Answers show is absolutely for you. Podcast Answers. I've never said podcast in such rapid succession before.
No,
it's really good. I love it. Podcast Answers is a weekly podcast going over the topics of podcasting. If you need more than just listening to a podcast to get the help you need, Mr. Andy Lehman is here to help out. And he's embarrassingly easy to find. So we'll make sure that you get a hold of him. But Andy, you do this show. I've watched it. I've learned a few things along the way. I'll just say, because as we're all very clear, as I say it all the time, I have no idea what's going on in the show. I don't even know right now how it's possible that I'm even able to hear myself, and yet I can. And it's magic, and it's Andy Lehman, and it's all the great content that you get to encounter on Podcast Answers. So check it out. Reach out to Andy. He's happy to get you up and going. We, people make a few assumptions about podcasting. They think I can just show up and talk into a microphone. And while that is technically true, there's a lot more that goes on behind the scenes. There's a lot of technical know-how. There's some audiological know-how, and there is some personality know-how too, which again I've struck out all three of those things. But Podcast Answers, check it out. So Andy, we've been having this show kind of in the hoppa, as they say out east, it's for a while. It's been on our list for a while. It was a while ago that Jonathan suggested this,
but he did suggest that we do this. And so we are going to be doing this. We're doing this show right now, and we've broken it. We've broken this down into age groups, and so we've broken it down into grade 1 through 5, grade 6 through 8, and then grade 9 through 12 are the three things that we've broken it up. Well, actually, no, sorry, 4. I can't count apparently.
You did preschool, grade 1 through 5, grade 6 through 8,
and then 9 through 12.
9 through 12, so the high school years. Andy, I want to say that your first idea with the preschool age, borderline genius.
Right.
I had not even thought of this yet.
So this is what I'll go ahead and start. So when my kids were young, we were living fairly close to a Lowe's.
You were, that's right.
And so it was one of those things where we were just like, okay, what do I do? Let's go look at tools. And my boys at the time, that's all we had at the time. And they're like, They loved going to the tool store and just looking at tools. And it's great because I don't have to spend any money.
Exactly right.
And I can walk around for an hour at least, and we're just looking at different things.
It's kind of like a tool museum, really.
Really, it kind of is.
Because everything's like out there on display, and the kids as they're young. And I would say, it probably goes, and this is one thing you can start off with when they're little is just talking to them about the tools. But I would say
talk with them about the tools.
Talk with them about the tools. But like even now, like Josiah, for instance, who's 12, there's on the regular, he'll, when we're at the hardware store or whatever, he'll ask me kind of like some of the more obscure tools and things. He'll ask me like what they do. Of course, I got to be on my toes because usually I know what the things do, but every once in a while there's like the weird one.
That's what like the quick Google is for. You're like,
tell me
what does this tool do?
What is this thing for?
It's great when they have the QR codes up there that you can just like scan.
That's great.
Because then you can find all about the tool.
Yeah.
And not have to actually know the tool.
I'm trying to think, Andy, if there would be like a similar experience you could have. Like, and I get it. Like, yes, the hardware store, and I'm thinking of even like there's of course Lowe's, but you know what I love is these small town old school hardware stores.
Oh yeah, those are good.
We have a few of those in our area that it's gosh, we would say it's more than just a hardware store. It's kind of a whole experience.
Yeah, it is.
There's like there's toys, there's like home goods, there's all this different kind of stuff. And you can just walk around for quite some time and get a little lost.
Right. And it's good because it's a little bit of everything for everybody.
Yeah. And so, but to your point, you can kill some time if you need to. You can get the kids out of the house. Maybe that's the thing. If you've got young ones, I know you had this experience. I had this experience where it's like, I need to at least take one or two of them.
Yeah.
And give someone else a break.
Usually it's the wife.
Usually it's the wife.
Yeah, no, that's what, I mean, for me, that's what we did. We just kind of walked around for a while, and it got us out of the house, got us something new to do, and just, they could touch the tools, and it was great.
Yeah.
What about you for like birth to preschool, what was your favorite thing to do with your kids?
Yes, the thing with the kids. Now, here's what I will say. Initially, we were really fortunate when we lived in South Bend. We lived right across from the zoo.
Oh yeah,
and
you could hear the animals from your house.
We could hear the animals. They've recently, I think they've recently updated. I was going to say updated the animals. I think got younger animals. We lived across from the lion. We found out we lived across from the lion exhibit, and the lions that lived there were getting older, and so their roar wasn't quite as majestic as it may have been in years past. It sounded more like how would I say this? Like
a dying dog?
Kind of like if you imagine a lion kind of yawning and dying at the same time.
Oh.
Like that, it was an interesting sound. I won't try to replicate it here.
Please, thank you.
It was something. But we would do the zoo. But here's the thing. We would go to the zoo, or we would see an animal, and then we would there were times where the kids would want to know more about them, or you can do YouTube videos of the animals and see them
oh yeah,
like in the wild, because for instance at the zoo we were at, we have this whole exhibit of prairie dogs, and you can actually get relatively close to them but they have this whole mound.
Sure.
That you can I guess stand around kind of, and you can see all of them stick their heads, whatever. But it's hard for you to get the vision of what it's like out in the wild. So you can see those, and then we do a YouTube video and that kind of thing. That's sometimes interesting. We did that. That was a big thing when they were little. The other thing I would say is did a lot of we actually went on walks.
Yeah.
I think, and I think you guys did that. Got out on a walk.
Yeah, we did that a lot because I got energy out, and we would always, especially on that young age. I mean, I like that still now, but on those younger ages, I liked it because you could kind of go and make it an adventure. You could, if there was something to play on or around, like a fire hydrant or something like that, you could always go and you could always find something to do. And something to be able to entertain you while you were walking. So in the neighborhood that we were in. So when we lived, and this is again when they were younger, we lived in South Bend, Indiana, and there's a section that was actually the next block over from us, known as East Jefferson, and it's some of the most historic old homes, a high concentration of them, and so. I think as the kids got just a little bit older, where they were walking with us, we would kind of point out the different things about the houses and what made them different, and things that were interesting, and because the houses were much larger than the one that we were living at. But I think the interesting thing there is to help them become more aware of the world around them. Oh yeah, sure.
And to kind of, because you don't really, if you think about it from the perspective of a kid, their world can actually be quite small, right? What they're exposed, they have their daily routines and things like that, and what they're exposed to, and what they see. And even though years and years later, I bet you if I asked Josiah right now, hey, do you remember we used to go on those walks on East Jefferson and look at all the houses? He might have some maybe fleeting memory of that. But it sets kind of a sets an importance, that we do things like that as a family.
Oh, sure.
And that it doesn't always have to be, I think that we can feel this, I don't know, probably feel this pressure that everything that we do with our kids has to be some major epic event. But I think simple things like that require you to kind of, take in your surroundings, slow down a little bit. You're just at walking, you're at walking pace. Those are really, really good things. And even better, when we go walking, the best thing we can do is that we just leave the phones.
Sure. Well, I mean, when they're that young, they're not going to have a phone, but now, and that's a good time to not only leave your phone home, but it allows you to also have that good one-on-one conversation because their guard's down. I mean, it's a little bit weird when you're like just around the house and you're like, hey, like how was your day? But like it's not weird, but I mean if you're, I want to say that not trapped, but
Right.
because that sounds weird. But I mean, like if you're in the car going somewhere, you can, as a dad, bring up those conversations and they can't run anywhere.
Yeah.
And same thing when you're on a walk, like you can bring up those conversations and you can have some of those even tough conversations because you're not necessarily in the house, but you're out and
a setting change is really, really
Yeah.
important. Yeah. And especially there's something, and I'm sure a neuroscientist could tell me all about it, but like when you're, the nature of conversation interaction when you're moving versus sitting, like you said, or like, you know, the change in atmosphere and the change in what you're doing. I probably do a lot better. I found this for myself, and this is true for your kids. Like you do better thinking and better expressing when you're moving.
Oh yeah.
For sure. So yeah. So take the walks, take the tours of. I mean, you know, depending on, and maybe that's that even in the slightly older age, like walking through places where you normally would just drive by or would not be surrounded by.
Yeah.
And that was kind of a thing that we would do. On a semi regular basis, I think.
So moving on to grades 1 through 5, and I know that that's a huge, like that. There's a big age range there, and I purposely kind of broke it down there, but so it's going to be a little bit hard to say favorite things. And for us, like I'm evenly split boy girl. You are heavily on the boy versus girl. You have a girl, but you're not that evenly split.
Right.
So some of these things may be more geared towards men, or, you know, boys, whereas some things that I say maybe both. But for me, I would say I've got kids who are like to do Lego-y things and drawing and creating art.
Yep.
And so even now, and I've done that with, and so this for me doesn't even really apply necessarily just for grade 1 through 5, but and sometimes that's because I have kids that span almost all of these. I do have kids that span all of these age groups.
Yeah.
Well, not birth to preschool, but the other ones, like all of my kids fit in there somewhere. And so sometimes I find myself doing these things with multiple groups.
Yeah.
But like creating like art and drawing are kind of fun because you can just go and you can do that a couple different ways. For us, we've done it where we just take a coloring book and color.
Yeah.
And I like doing that because it's fun, even though I'm an adult. Like it's kind of fun to get out the crayons and color.
The coloring stuff, and now that you've said that, I'm like, why not? Like, that would probably help me out a lot. Just calm down a little bit.
Well,
yeah.
and I mean, I think that not only that, but we've also done it where like we'll start a drawing and we'll have a timer going, and then at the end of the timer, you pass the drawing to the other person, and then start another timer, and they complete your drawing.
Nice.
And it's kind of fun, especially if you have 2 or 3 people playing that, because that allows you to get some kind of real cool creativity in there.
That's a great idea. That's something that I think that's probably one of those things that no matter, like you said, no matter the age, there's kind of you can kind of cross over the age boundaries there. So I have a question, because this is always the debate we have of what you do with all the art.
So a lot of times we throw it away.
Oh,
no, I mean,
geez.
but no, I mean, like sometimes we'll leave it up. But it was interesting. So the other day, and again, this is the reason I say that like, it kind of spans the grades, is I started doing, I don't remember if it was just with, I think it was me and Hattie. And we had an index card, and I just started doodling all over it and like making like interesting line art. And then next thing I know, Eli was like, "Oh, that's really cool," and he started doing the same thing and doing it with us. We kept those around for a few days, and then I got rid of mine. And yeah, I mean, that's especially on those game type things where you're drawing like that, because then you don't feel so bad because it's not just Hattie or Reagan or Eli or Mike.
You were doing the art for the sake of the game,
right? Not necessarily for having it art, because then you're like, if it's them just creating art, then you like kind of feel bad because you're getting rid of their art. But if you're doing it as a game, then it's kind of like, well, the game's over, let's throw it away.
Yeah, I'd like to know. That's an interesting thing. I've seen, and I've thought about doing it. there are some pretty inexpensive like art display options for, I don't know if you've seen them, where they're frames kind of that, like if your kids are writing on like a regular piece of paper, you can put their artwork in the frame, but the frame just like folds down, and it like you can stack multiple.
Oh, okay. So you can keep it all, but you don't. It's all.
It's all like it's all kind of in there in one sort of thing. And I've thought, like, especially for Molly, who I think really enjoys exactly kind of what you're talking about, like hey, here's this drawing, and it's like, that's really cool, and I'd like to put that up somewhere. Our refrigerator is only so large,
right?
You can try to find the spot.
Well, and then the other thing we did is like Lego creations, and that's fun because it gets kind of that same art type. It helps the brain move around, and it helps the brain formulate things. And so, you know, even if it's not just doing like the set art where you're or the set Lego sets where you're putting them together, but like coming up with something creative. And again, that's one of those things where you don't necessarily feel bad wrecking it at the end of the night, because you say, hey, we've got to put this away, and you do it.
Do you guys have the bin of Legos?
Yeah, we have like the giant bin. But then, especially with Eli, so Eli still does a lot of Legos, and he's now into the ones where he likes to get the sets and do them and leave them up.
Yeah.
Instead of just playing with them. And so like he's got several on his desk that he has created and set up, and he wants to keep them there.
Yes.
They're more of art projects for him now, as opposed to just creating Legos.
Yeah. And I would say we've probably crossed into that some too. There has been some debate in my household about who owns what set and where they should be. So I've got to, like, this year I'm like, okay, if we get any Lego sets as gifts, I'm gonna write their I'm gonna have to like write their names on the outside of the boxes, and because it's like this whole thing. But yeah, very much so. Josiah's got a bunch of various like automobiles, like with the Technics stuff, like he's got set up. And I know that I feel like I'm running out of, I gotta keep on putting like more shelves up in their rooms to display. But yeah, Legos are fantastic. We still have one of the bins that we have of just like the loose Legos dates back all the way to my brother and I.
Oh wow.
And we've kept that through through multiple moves and all that, which I'm sure, I'm sure there's somebody out there that well, like the thing is with Legos now is that you can, what is it? There's different like Lego services where you can like tell people like the Legos that you have, and I think that they can show you what you you can build,
what you can build with them,
with them, all that kind of stuff. So super interesting, super cool.
What about for you for the first to fifth grade? What's your go-to activity?
Go-to activity with them, I would say, let's try to think about this. Like, this is the age where they all started playing, really started playing, at least doing a lot of sports stuff, more sports sort of related things. And that tends to be the things that I'm doing with them. It's interesting because, like, as you ask, it's like outside of that, it's like, what other activities do we do? And I would say it's probably an area that we need to work at, because I think a lot of it is kind of like athletics or like Molly she did her dance stuff, or like gymnastics. I'm probably not very good at gymnastics. Molly's actually here in the studio right now. Have I ever done gymnastics with you? No? I think it could be kind of scary if you were to see me do gymnastics.
You wearing a tutu would be a ballerina tutu would be bad.
That's overly graphic. So yeah, I'm trying to think of other activities that we have done. The kids do like we've done like movie nights, like that's something that we've done. I think in general, you can find, right now it seems like we can find movies that they all still enjoy watching together for the most part. I think that can be kind of the challenge of like, what kind of all holds their interest or whatever. But yeah, there's we'll do the movie nights. We trying to think if there's anything else. Sometimes, and would probably, now that I'm saying this, that we should look into it. during the fall in particular, I have memories of doing this when I was younger. I'd like to do it with them. Do fall canoeing, like fall canoeing trips when the leaves start to change and along the river.
Sure.
It's lovely.
Yes.
That's Molly coughing in the background. Hey. But yeah, I think a lot of outdoor stuff, things like that. That's good.
Yeah, and so that's for me still to even that age range, especially. Like Hattie will ask me to play with her a lot outside, and so going outside and playing is fun. And then I guess moving on to grades 6 through 8, for me, I remember a lot of playing football, especially with the boys. Not just the boys though. We didn't do so much this year, and I kind of missed it. I want to actually do it again, but there's still time, right? I mean, it's football season.
That's right.
But grades 6 through 8, I remember specifically just playing pickup games or keep away or whatever in the yard. And
my boys like to do, maybe you guys do it, where they do, what do they call it? Jackpot?
Oh yeah.
Where like
problem is my arm is not that good anymore. I don't know that it ever was, but
yeah, that's well, it when they are able to throw the ball like throw it better,
better than you. Yeah, totally. Well, that's Eli's like that too. But yeah, so for me, that's 6 through 8 was a lot of that, playing ball in the yard, playing soccer, playing whatever we had, just kind of on a fall night where we're after dinner going out and playing outside in the yard. That for me, that's what I would say for those age ranges.
Yeah, and more and more so, it feels like, I think part of it is finding it's like kind of fighting for the space and the time to do those sort of things. I know, this always brings up for me as I've been thinking about this and sitting here. It's like there's always this, like, once I get home, there's many times it's like, gosh, there's like any number of things to do,
sure,
right? While we're trying to do this, and then when you're asking, but when you are asking the question, when you're thinking about like, okay, what are the specific things that we can do? There's just a level of intentionality, I guess, with thinking about that and figuring out those activities. I would say, Matthew. So Matthew's now 10, and then Aaron is going to be here 14 in just a couple months. Getting outside and throwing the ball around is good. Kicking the ball. Our kids like to. They've actually invented, and I'm not even sure they've tried to explain the rules to me. They've invented a couple of games that they play in our backyard. But it's like kickball, but it's like they have like different rules for it.
Interesting.
Yeah. And so I think, at that age, the idea of inventing games or having, I like it when they'll invent or come up with a game or something that they're doing that they have to bring me into and explain to me and help me.
It helps their creativity too, and to come out and when they're creating something like that.
Yeah. Better than just better than a lot of other options, I'd say, when they're, like you said.
Yeah.
Yep. And play. Oh, that's right. We did get a trampoline this past. I personally stay away from the trampoline.
You might break yourself.
I feel like I could damage something, but it's fun to watch them do some things, play trampoline games.
So grades 9 through 12.
Oh boy.
But you're not there yet, are you? No,
so next year.
Next year. So you maybe can't speak to this yet, but for me, this one was kind of tough. In my notes, I kind of left it blank because I didn't really know. I'm trying to think what my favorite thing to do now is. I like to go like downtown, not Millersburg because that's pretty tiny, but like Goshen would be a pretty close town to us, and I like to go downtown and walk with them. Go in and out of some of the different stores and just discover some of the things, just looking around, essentially what we were doing, with the tools, where we were just looking and kind of discovering things, but doing that again now, where we're finding things like going into different antique shops or bookstores or things like that, where we're not necessarily going to buy any of the product, but we're able to kind of just walk and make memories and do that. Like we're hanging out like that and discovering things, maybe going to get a pretzel at JoJo's, whatever, but we're just kind of hanging out like that. That's one of my favorite things to do now, with my kids of all ages, but especially the older ones.
You know, something that we forget about, and when you mentioned this, so a lot of towns will have some form of a local like a local museum of some sort, of some sort of like interesting historical thing. And I feel like those are kind of like underutilized. Usually they're very inexpensive to go to if they have a cost at all. And, you know, or even like local art installations, local, like any sort of local museum sort of thing. We have a few of those in a few different of our surrounding communities here. And you know, it's stuff that you pass by all the time. You don't think about it. And, and it's like, I think there would be, there's real interest. We had, who was it? It was Josiah. It was at the Garage Coffee Shop located in beautiful Wakarusa, Indiana. That's the Garage Coffee Shop. Our friends over there, they've got some photos up. They're old photos of the old town.
Oh, sure.
Because the reason it's called the Garage Coffee Shop is it was built in the early 1900s and it was an automotive garage. And they have old black and white photos of the building and things like that. And I like immediately Josiah like gravitated toward like seeing that and figuring out, you know, like, oh, how was, you know, like, oh, there are buildings that were here that are no longer here, and now this is sort of stuff, things like that. And I think just a sense of helping kids appreciate history and understand that, again, like their local towns and things like that have a history to them, doing that sort of stuff. I know, like we here in Goshen, we have First Fridays, and those are great opportunities.
Oh yeah, that's a good one. We've not been to those in a while, but those are nice because you can hang out and hang out with friends and things like that.
And they do the gosh, is it? I'm going to forget which month it is. The Fire and Ice. I think it's in maybe it's in January. They do all the ice sculptures. Yeah, that's a winner. That's a good time. Oh, that's the other thing. Oh, the one thing we do. Speaking of which, Molly just help me remember. Different communities have this when like when people start making maple syrup, they have like different, like you can go to, what is it? Like at Bendix Woods out towards South Bend, different places, but different festivals around like the maple syrup making process. It's super fun. Everybody's like, that sounds a little nerdy. It is a little nerdy, but it's super cool to see how they do it. Usually involves, Andy, a couple of very old gentlemen, you know, in an old shack somewhere, explaining to young kids who aren't sure if they really understand what's going on, how the whole process is done. But we've done that several times a year, several times over the years. Yeah. So I would say, I think, a lot of mine across the ages, a lot of it has to do with, I think things that kind of cause us to slow down a little bit.
Yes.
They are on the technology side, less technology. Yeah. They're not nearly as, dependent upon technology. And they're more, like walking pace sort of things. They are more like tactile and things like that, which I think is probably, I mean, that's helpful at multiple levels to do. And so even now I'm thinking, you know, as we're having these discussions and at the age range and what we can do, I would say that I personally, and I can thank Jonathan for this when he gave this recommendation, probably think more intentionally about those kinds of activities and meeting my kids where they are. Mm-hmm. At the same time, trying to introduce some new and creative things that they can do. And, you know, if you've got younger kids, man, it's super great if you can kind of start that off and kind of begin those traditions, and it kind of is a normal sort of thing.
Yeah, and that's kind of the fun thing too, is if you start creating traditions and things like that, then you can do them throughout the years, no matter how old your kids are. as they get older, they're still fun for them to do because they can look back on those memories.
Yeah.
Like I could probably still go look at tools now with my kids.
Yeah, probably.
And they would like it because they're older now and they have more of an interest in that for themselves.
Right.
But that also is that nostalgic memories that they have of us doing it when they were little.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, and I think we just, sometimes as parents, it's easy to discount the impact of those memories. And sometimes kids don't always know how to like express what that means to them at the time. But, you know, a few years later, when they get a little older and start kind of reflecting on those things, I know I was that way with my parents. Like they would do things with us all the time. We had we had a nature preserve not too far from our house, like this, and it was this nature thing, and I just remember like, oh yeah, and now it's like those are some good memories. They're good memories. They're fun memories. So
yep.
it all depends on your perspective. But yeah, it's we would just encourage each of you to kind of think about, and I'm gonna try to do better on that on my end. We would just encourage each of you to think about kind of where your kids are, and what are some interesting age-based activities that you could do. And it's all the better. I mean, if you can find the things, and we would love some recommendations too, like things that are, especially that are cost effective. That's always great.
Feedback at dudesanddadspodcast.com.
So great.
Would be a great place for that. Jonathan, we want to thank you for putting this in, because this is a great episode, a great time for us to think about the things that we like to do with our kids based on their ages. And so we thank you for putting that in.
Yeah. Well, guys, as always, you can head over to dudesanddadspodcast.com for all the past episodes, show notes, all the goodies.
All of that fun stuff.
All the fun stuff. Check it out over there. It's a good time. Dudes and Dads Podcast at gmail.com for all of your great show ideas. Ideas, remarks, and harsh criticisms. We'll take it all in stride. You can also leave us a voicemail, right, Andy?
Yeah, but I don't have that number right.
That's right, because it's broken.
My buttons are broken right now.
Buttons are broken. But hey, guys,
broken buttons.
We appreciate all of you joining us. Thanks for coming and hanging out. And until next time, we wish you grace
and peace.
Be sure to share the podcast on your favorite social media channels.